Hi, I'm Vaughn Palmer here at the BC legislature with my colleague Rob Shaw, and I guess the first thing we should do is tell you why we're here in the Legislative Press Theatre, and where the politicians usually are, and not in the chamber, and that is because the legislature chamber, even though the House is not sitting, is in use this week, Rob.
Yeah, they have a very interesting terrorism and security conferences. Police, academic experts, someone from the Canadian spy agency is here, and they're all discussing basically how do you protect parliaments, legislatures from threats, how do you share information, assess risks, that type of thing. There's some American officials here from Texas and Hawaii talking about how they do it. So very interesting discussion in this age of increased security. Vaughn, you touched on it in one of your columns this week.
Yeah, I mean, against the backdrop of what just happened in the United Kingdom, where you had a member of parliament on a visit to a constituency, in fact, a constituency day for her constituents, is murdered, shot and stabbed by an angry guy with a history of mental illness and links to far-right groups. But, you know, the biggest challenge for the security people, they say, is identifying, separating the people who just vent on social media stupidly, make threats, and the people who actually act on them.
Yeah, that's the big skill. Talking to BC's Sergeant at Arms, who's in charge of security here at the building, he said the big skill that the next Sergeant at Arms needs in a few years is figuring out those threats. What is actionable? What is real? What is someone venting on Twitter? What is someone with a crazy blog post just talking about harming politicians? What's real, what's not, how do you act on it? It's that kind of modern age of risk assessment.
Anecdotal evidence suggests there's a problem everywhere. Premier Christy Clark has had her life threatened. Some of her predecessors as well needed security. Premier Rachel Notley in Alberta, a major issue there over threats. The British actually did a survey of members of the House of Commons, and a third of the members of House of Commons replied. Almost 200 said they had been subjected to one kind of a threat or intimidation or another. Half of them said they'd been confronted in their own homes where they live, and 50 said they had actually been attacked or their staff had headed off an attempted attack. No survey that I'm aware of in Canada, but you talk to our politicians of every political stripe, they'll tell you there's a lot of this going on, and they don't make a big deal of it publicly because they fear it only encourages it. No. I guess social media magnifies it.
Well, privately, though, security has been dramatically increased in this building the past few years after the foiled Canada Day bombing attempt and then the shootings at Parliament Hill in Ottawa. We now have we have armed guards in the building.
Yeah.
They weren't armed before. We have scanners at each entrance, more cameras. There's active shooter training on what to do if someone gets in here with a gun. So that it's an evolving situation and one that everyone's trying to figure out.
And it's disturbing because Parliament's supposed to be open and we have free speech and all that as well. And I don't make light of it, but yeah, it's a changing world we live in. Rob, some other news this week. We've been talking about politicians who've announced they're not running again. The Liberals lost a big one this week, not running again, Cabinet Minister Bill Bennett.
Yeah, Energy Minister Bill Bennett from the Kootenays saying that after 15 years in politics, he has decided he's pretty much done. He wants to spend time with his family. Interesting interview I had with him this week where he said his career has basically come back from the dead. Yeah. After Gordon Campbell was premier, this infamous falling out that they had where he fired Bennett from cabinet, booted him from caucus. Bennett showed up at the legislature for one of the greatest scrums in the history of the legislature where he just went out on Campbell, said everything that was on his mind. And then he has resurrected his career under Clark. He's in a more powerful position than he ever was. And he said to me this week, I know I'm at the top of my game. I had to wrestle internally with whether I was going to call it a career or not, but I decided to do it for my family.
And it's a big problem for the BC Liberals because if you look at what's been going on in Bennett's riding, he's the member for Kootenay East. It's a region where every other MLA is a New Democrat. And Bennett's vote has, all the controversies he's been involved in, his vote has gone up every election. In the last provincial election, he took 63% of the vote. That is the third best showing of any MLA in British Columbia. He's leaving, and the Liberals are going to have trouble replacing him because it is Bill Bennett's riding more than it's a BC Liberal riding.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. There are other cabinet ministers who will surely announce that they're not running again. Generally, they kind of wait until just before the shuffle that the Premier's expected to do this fall for her pre-election cabinet, but we're going to see many more announced.
Yeah, although I don't think as many Liberals will go this time as did last time. They had about a 50% turnover in 2013. A lot of Liberals didn't think they were going to win the election either. I think now a lot of Liberals figure they have a pretty good shot at it, so I don't think you'll see as many retirements, and I think Rob's right. You'll see a cabinet shuffle in the fall. The New Democrats have had some retirements as well, and we'll be back next week to talk about other issues in BC politics.